The name of the woman who had struck him, Beatrix Highborn, etched itself into Raze's memory. She hadn't given him the courtesy of a conversation before attacking, yet she had made sure to declare her name. That alone was enough for Raze to remember it. In this new world, names held power, and if fate ever gave him the chance to return the favor, he intended to remember the one who made him feel so helpless. Why she'd announced herself before striking, Raze wasn't sure. Perhaps it was a cultural quirk among martial artists. A show of pride before a clash? A tradition of honor? Whatever it was, Raze knew one thing. Beatrix Highborn was dangerous. I wasn't expecting this, Raze muttered under his breath, scanning the people nearby. Their expressions twisted into a mix of shock and unease the moment her name left his mouth. Not just surprise, fear. I didn't realize she was so well known. Sonny stepped in to ease the tension. It's all right, everyone. The kid's just curious. No need for alarm. He placed a firm hand on Raze's shoulder and quickly ushered him along, putting distance between them and the onlookers. Only once they were out of earshot did Sonny speak again. Word of advice? Don't go saying that name too loud, unless you want a riot on your hands. His voice was low but sharp. Remember when I told you about the different factions? There's been a bitter blood feud between the light and dark factions for years. And Beatrix? Raze asked. She's one of the rising stars of the light faction. After winning the last Warriors Summit, her name spread like wildfire. Raze blinked. Warriors Summit? It sounded like some kind of elite tournament. He could only guess how brutal it must be. So, she really is that strong? Sonny let out a dry chuckle. You saw how people reacted to her name, didn't you? If she was here now, she could wipe out our entire clan. Raze's hand instinctively went to his chest. The phantom ache from her strike still lingered. That one blow had nearly broken him, and now he realized that it was only a fraction of her true strength. This world gets more dangerous by the day, Raze thought. If I ever want to return Altarian, I have to get stronger, fast. I can't afford to stumble into monsters like her without being prepared. Let's just hope she forgets about me. Before long, they arrived at the Red Brigade's clan base. Towering double doors marked the entrance, and the moment they stepped inside, the air buzzed with noise, grunts, shouts, the rhythmic thud of fists slamming into practice posts. Raze looked around, eyes wide. Dozens of kids, some his age, others younger, trained shirtless, sweat dripping from their skin as they moved in perfect synchrony. Each strike carried the distinct ripple of chi, just like Crone had shown him. Are they from the academy? He asked. No, Sonny said. They're preparing for it. Every clan sends its members to the academy at 16. It's mandatory. That way, no faction falls behind. Raze scanned the room. One boy struck a measuring pillar. 35, lit up in response. Average appearance, but more talent than any of the kids back at the temple, Raze noted. And Beatrix could obliterate a clan filled with these kinds of warriors? The two made their way into the main building. A few students eyed Raze's unfamiliar face and stark white hair, but quickly dismissed him. His slim, unimposing frame marked him as a non-warrior, beneath their concern. The Red Brigade's base was a maze of paper-paneled doors and twisting hallways. Shadows flitted behind the thin paper walls, but there were no signs or indicators. Navigation seemed a test in itself. Raze followed Sonny until they reached a pair of guards stationed at a large sliding door. Sonny Baxt is here with Raze, Sonny announced. A deep voice responded, Enter. The room inside was bathed in the soft glow of candlelight. Incense drifted lazily in the air, smelling faintly of wildflowers. The decor was sparse, but the far wall was dominated by immense scrolls bearing the names of the clan's founders. At a large desk stacked with towers of paper sat an old man draped in crimson robes. Thank you for coming, he said. Sonny stepped forward, bowing with his fist in his palm. I greet the clan master. Raze followed suit. I greet the clan master. The old man smiled slightly. Polite. I like that. I am Elder Yon, master of this Red Brigade unit. Sonny must have told you why I summoned you. He has, sir. Raze replied, keeping his tone respectful. Good. I have a few questions of my own, Elder Yon said. eyes narrowing as they locked with Raze. How does a child, especially one with no notable strength, survive an encounter with a Pagna warrior? One who slaughtered your entire family. Raze stiffened. Is he suspicious of me? Does he think I'm connected to this body's past? I didn't even know the parents. If he believes I'm hiding something. His palms began to sweat. For a moment, he felt like he was back in his old life, back when every word could decide whether he lived or died. The old man leaned forward slightly, voice like iron. So, tell me, Raze, how did you survive when the rest of your family didn't? Even in Raze's absence, life at the temple continued as usual. Duties remained duties. This morning, Simeon found himself working in the kitchen, but instead of Raze, he was paired with Safa. You're not bad at this, Simeon said, watching her deftly peel potatoes. But your brother, he's a natural. Did he cook at home often? Safa paused mid-peel, her eyes locking with his. The truth was, Raze had never cooked a meal in their house. Not even once. But she assumed Simeon was just trying to be kind, or maybe just make conversation. A strange stillness fell over them. Oh, right, Simeon muttered awkwardly, smacking his forehead with the palm of his hand. You can't talk. I'm such an idiot, Al. He winced. The knife in his other hand had nicked him, a small cut, shallow, but sharp like a paper slice. Startled, Safa sprang into action. She grabbed a clean cloth, soaked it in boiled water, and carefully dabbed at his hand. Thanks, Simeon said through clenched teeth. You're a lot nicer than your brother. I swear if this happened with him, he'd probably say something like, first time being cut. Or maybe, please tell me you're not planning to use that knife again. Safa smiled. It was too easy to imagine Raze saying exactly that. Or at least the new version of him. They resumed their tasks. Simeon, usually a chatterbox, felt uncharacteristically quiet. The silence pressed down on him until he spoke again. You know, you and your brother are lucky. Having someone in your corner like that, especially in a place like this. His eyes settled on the flickering flame under the cooking pot, as if drawn back in time. I used to have a sister too, and parents. We lived in a small village. Then one day, a portal break. His voice trembled. Monsters poured out. They killed everyone. My mom, my dad, my sister. He swallowed hard. A Pagna warrior happened to be passing by. He saved me, brought me here. For a second, Simeon forced a smile. If this was a story, I'd be the tragic orphan destined for greatness, right? He clenched his fist, so tight it shook. But I'm not. I try to use my grief to turn it into strength. To become someone who could stop those monsters, protect others. But it turns out I'm not main character material. And to be honest, neither is your brother. He looked at Safa, his eyes softened. But maybe you are. So promise me, Safa, stay strong. Protect him. Safa didn't agree with his view of Raze. Not anymore. But she nodded anyway, offering Simeon a gentle, reassuring smile. As the meal neared completion, Safa set the table while Simeon plated the food. Just then, the door creaked open behind them. Mr. Crone, it'll be ready in 10 minutes, Simeon called without turning. But the voice that answered made his skin crawl. It smells great. Simeon's shoulders tensed. He turned and saw exactly what he feared, Grin, flanked by the smirking twin brothers. You never do kitchen duty, Simeon said, narrowing his eyes. Why are you even here? Grin gave a lazy shrug. Just wanted to help out. Be part of the team, you know? He wandered over and grabbed a bowl, as if the food belonged to him. Then, with a crooked grin, he added, by the way, we've got a new student. A real prodigy. Words spreading fast. Gio handed him something. An odd mushroom, purple with green spots. Poisonous looking. A special girl deserves a special dish, Grin said smoothly. He began crumbling the mushroom into one of the bowls. Simeon stared, frozen. The laughter of the trio echoed in the back of his mind. His fist clenched, his jaw tightened. He's doing this in front of me like I don't even matter. Like I'm too weak to stop him. Just like last time. His mind went back to his talk with Raze. To Safa. And something shifted in him. If Raze won't stand up for her, then I will. Simeon's voice exploded through the room. Grin. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. He lunged. His punch sailed through the air, missing. Grin sidestepped with ease, then struck back. His chi-enhanced fist slammed into Simeon's face, sending him sprawling across the floor. Blood spilled from his nose. Seriously? Grin scoffed. You trying to impress that mute freak? Ever since she got here, everything's been off. He grabbed Simeon by the shirt and hoisted him up. This needs to look like an accident. We don't want crones sniffing around, do we? Grin's eyes fell on the bubbling pot of water. Perfect, he sneered, dragging Simeon toward it. Let's say you slipped. Simeon's shoes scraped against the floor. The boiling water steamed beside him. Then, slam, the double doors flew open. Grin turned, just in time to catch a fist square in the face. It hit hard. He stumbled back, vision swimming. Sappha stood there, fists clenched, eyes blazing. You, Grin roared. You little b*****. I'll kill you. He dropped Simeon and advanced, the twins moving behind him. Simeon's breath hitched. No, she can't fight all three. She's outnumbered. I can't let her die. I won't lose someone like I lost my sister. He wiped the blood from his face, rising to his feet, his body trembling. And this time, he didn't hesitate.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
From what Raze had learned about Pagno warriors, it was no wonder that he had become suspect. He was in a body that could barely do a 400-meter lap around a field. He was less than a normal human being, and Pagno warriors were more. Not only that, but the Pagno warrior had managed to kill the rest of Ray's family, and only the weakest managed to survive. The truth was it was a situation he had barely managed to escape from. At the time, he had a desperate will to live and did what he could. I thought you called me here because you had information on my parents' death? Ray smirked. But instead, I see that you've learned nothing at all, and now you're trying to pin the blame on me. I didn't realize that the clan would act this way. Sonny was a little nervous hearing Ray speak. When one spoke to an elder, or even a Pagno warrior that was a rank above them, they would speak with the utmost politeness. It made sense because they could end their lives with ease and no one would bat an eyelid. No one would investigate it, especially a no-name. Raze, there are many reasons why people get killed by the Pagna every day. People witnessing or overhearing things they shouldn't. A thug hired by another, or simply for disrespecting another person. Elder Jan said the last line slowly, as if he was warning the kid. If we learn how you managed to survive, then maybe we can know what the target's goal was. An item your family stole, or something else. I guess what I'm asking more specifically is, what led to the final moments between you and the assassin? Did you hear your parents' last words, or anything of the sort? The boy truly remembered next to nothing. He didn't even know he had a sister until he saw her. I'll tell you what I remember, Raze answered. His hands around my throat, me fighting to just taking a breath, and then me stabbing him as hard as I could in his side, just so he could get off me. When I stood up, I was in a room full of my dead family members. There were wounds on the assassin's body already that looked to be made by swords, and that hadn't been done by me. I think that due to the injuries, the assassin was already on his last breath, and that was how I managed to best him. While Raze was speaking, Elder Jan wrote down a few things using an ink pen on a large scroll, and he started to tap away on the paper. I have another theory, if you would like to hear. Jan said, a Pagna warrior could have killed you with a simple fist. The only reason I can think that you are alive right now is because you had to be in on your parents' death. You aided in their death. Ray's eyes widened. Why would he? Or more correctly, why would the old Raze do such a thing? At the same time, though, he couldn't outright deny it. Why would a warrior let me kill them with my own hands? Raze asked, don't you think you should be asking, why would you try to kill your own parents? Jan replied, but quickly moved past that point. That's what I want to know as well. Did you back out of the deal at the last moment? Allowing you to strike him, was there a disagreement? Or did you come to realize something? Then why would they try to strike me and my sister down again? Raze asked. Elder Jan stood up and stopped writing things down at this point, and turned his back to look at the scrolls on the wall. That is the most interesting part of it all. What is it that these people want to hide so much that you know? Jan said, I think you aren't lying about losing your memories, Raze. Either due to some type of shock that occurred that day, or maybe even something that had occurred in a way to protect you, similar to a seal, but that knowledge is still inside you, hidden, and whoever is after you is unaware of that. Out of everything Raze was feeling right now, he was feeling extremely annoyed. Why did the new body he entered have to have a target on his back already? The good news was that even if Jan was suspicious of Raze, it seemed like he was still trying to protect him in a way. Raze, there's a reason why I believe in my theory so strongly, Jan continued. You're not the only one this has happened to. Lately in this town and the nearby towns, families with no name have been killed, slaughtered in their own homes. It's an unusual case, but the patterns that follow are the same. That was until you broke the pattern, and you have done that by managing to survive. You and your sister are the only survivors of this strange case that is going on, which is why I had pleaded for Crone to look after you. It was clear that if the clan master trusted Crone this much, then he had to be someone special or at least strong enough to deal with whatever came after him. I have a feeling that the reason for your parents' death lies with you, and if we can't find the answer, then the only thing we can do is protect you. However, we can only do that for 1 year. Once you're 16, the temple is no longer obligated to look after you, and you'll be a sitting duck once more. I assume you have a suggestion if you ask me to come here? Raze asked. Yes, Jan answered. If the world of Pagna has come after you, then you are already a part of it, and you cannot escape. So you have no choice but to become a Pagna warrior. I will give you a recommendation into the academy. However, the rest will be down to you. You must at least have chi to be recognized as a rank 1 warrior. Otherwise, you won't be allowed to enter the academy. If only it was magic, then Raze wouldn't have had to worry so much. But there was something else he had taken away from the conversation as well. To think, were the chances that the body I inhabited might be a killer as well? As Safa returned to the kitchen, she could hear the sound of talking coming from the other side of the door. Pushing on it, she peeked through a little gap to see what was going on, and she managed to catch the tail end of the confrontation. She hadn't seen Simeon get hit, but she could see what was going to happen to him next, and knew exactly what he was insinuating on doing. Her hands were shaking. These people, what is wrong with them? Safa thought. They were targeting me, and now what? Just because Simeon is next to me, are they targeting him as well? Are people getting hurt all around me because of me? The look on Simeon's face, bloody, caused memories to flash of the noises she had heard while having sat, hiding in the cupboard. Then she remembered looking at Raze, the look on his face. This brought another thought to mind. He said that if I want to stop it, then I need to fight back. With these thoughts in her head, she pushed through and immediately ran with all her might to protect Simeon. When she was close, she used a 2-step shift to go past the 2 twins and threw a punch, landing right on Gren's face. However, something felt strange about the hit. It didn't feel solid, as if her whole fist hadn't made a connection. It's you, UB*TCH. I'm going to kill you. Gren shouted at Safa. Immediately, the 2 twins that had been bypassed, with furrowed eyebrows, came right at Safa. She turned around as she could see them approaching and avoided the first hit from Jayo. However, she had moved right into Bio, who ended up grabbing both of her arms. Trying to get out of the situation, she lifted her legs, preparing to kick behind her. Before she could, though, Jayo slammed the side of her foot, kicking her shin. Safa's face was full of pain, but next to no noise came out from her throat. Only small, silent grunts were heard, like a soft whisper. Gren slowly walked over as the 2 twins held her together. Why don't you scream? Maybe someone will come and help you then, Gren said as he readied his fist. He closed his eyes, focusing in a way that allowed him to gather more chi. What are you doing? Simeon shouted. Are you trying to kill her? Stop. The sound of the doors flapping open were heard again, and immediately a wave of pressure was sent swirling into the room. What on earth are you all doing? Crone shouted. His voice alone created a gust of wind that was moving their hair, and with just his eyes bulging as they were now, one could tell how angry he was. Sir Crone, Gren shouted, and immediately went to bow down. He didn't lift his head, and soon the other twins had followed. It's not what it looks like, sir, Gren said. It looked like Simeon was giving her a few tips about her cooking. She didn't seem to take it well when she suddenly hit him. The 3 of us heard the commotion and rushed inside. We were holding her back. Isn't that right? Grin turned to look at Simeon, who had managed to get his upper body off the floor and was leaning against the cupboards. That look on your face, I recognize it. You're telling me you're going to make my life hell if I don't go along with your little game. Haha, what an idiot. No, Simeon said. Sir, check the dish on the table. Grin came inside while we were cooking and ground up a type of mushroom, adding it to the food. He wanted to ensure that Safa ate it. I tried stopping him, and I ended up like this. With each word spoken, Simeon had done so with a smile on his face. He was happy. He had finally told on Grin. That's not TR dash. Enough, Crone shouted, interrupting Grin before he could say anything more. He knew Simeon wasn't the type to lie. Why would he lie if his attacker was about to get away? There will be no meals for the three of you today. If you can't learn to use your fists properly, then you won't be allowed to use them at all. You are banned from training until further notice. Crone ordered. Grin wanted to argue back. He wanted to say something, but when he looked up from his bowing position and saw the look on Crone's face, he was frightened. An aura made him appear several times larger than he was. Fearful that saying anything else would worsen his punishment, he decided to remain silent for the time being. It was midday, and Crone was in his office, sitting at his desk as he gazed at the ceiling. He let out a big sigh, thinking about what had just happened. Those mushrooms, they were poisonous. For a kid of Safa's size, a dose like that could have been lethal. Where did Grin even get something like that? Crone started to shake his head, reminiscing about the day he first met Grin. I was concerned something like this might happen. I hoped that with some guidance, I could change him, but was he too influenced by his past? I was blinded by the talent he had and believed I could shape him. That is my mistake. This is serious. If I were to expel him from the orphanage, what would follow? Others might try to exploit him. Tapping his fingers, he pondered the best course of action, knowing the situation could deteriorate further. The rest of the day continued as usual. Even Grin and the twins had to complete their chores, albeit more slowly due to their lack of energy. Missing 2 meals for growing kids doing hard work was challenging. Both Simeon and Safa did their best to avoid the trio, and rumors amongst the other kids were circulating. I heard it's a love triangle. They're all fighting over Safa. Nah, Grin's just upset because he's short. He's got all this pent-up energy. You mean he's just a jerk? Yeah, I'd agree with that. Since the kids noticed Mr. Crone treating them differently, many were voicing their frustrations publicly, something they hadn't done before. With Mr. Crone's protection, which they previously doubted, they spoke their minds, and Grin heard every word. He ground his teeth back and forth as he polished the statue. Everything that I built up, the respect they all gave me, it's all been ruined because of her. In the evening, Raze still hadn't returned from the Red Brigade, but the students continued their evening training. True to his word, the twins and Grin had been told to stay out. The twins quickly went to bed, exhausted and hungry, while Grin couldn't contain his anger. I can't participate in training, and he's teaching all those useless fools who don't even know how to punch. Why? Why? Grin started to take deep breaths and looked around until his eyes settled on a particular room. Before he realized it, he had already entered and shut the door behind him. Ark! Grin screamed as he lifted the chair in the room and smashed it to the ground. He then lifted his foot and slammed it onto the top of the desk. He was breaking everything in the room, everything that belonged to her, but his frustration still hadn't been satisfied. Approaching the mattress, Grin started to punch it constantly, his hands shaped like claws. He tore right through the top layer, pulling out the stuffing bit by bit. Ark! Grin shouted as he continued his onslaught, eventually stopping, huffing and panting. All of this is useless. If I can't train or get stronger, I might as well leave. Looking down, something caught his eye. They were sparkling in a yellow color, beast crystals. The training was going on as it had been, and they were now wrapping up the final stages. Each student was being called up to measure their strength on the pillar. As they were doing this bit by bit, a pair of guests had finally arrived. Freaking hell. Why did that walk back feel a lot longer than the walk there? Raze complained, his hands on his knees, gasping for air. That's because it did take a lot longer, Sonny replied. We had to take a break around every 5 minutes. Are you sure you don't have some kind of medical condition? Pressing his hand on his chest, Raze wasn't sure himself. What if the after effects had been passed onto this new body? He wouldn't be able to check his own condition, though, until he was at least a 3-star mage. Walking over, Crone had caught their attention. He made eye contact with Sunny and nodded slightly before giving orders to the rest. "All right, everyone. Training is over for the day," Crone shouted. "Why don't you all head inside and rest up for the day?" The kids bowed down, thanking the teacher for the lesson, stomping their feet together, and started to walk off. Raze stayed by Sunny's side as it appeared that he wanted to talk to them about something. And that's when his eyes noticed something. Why is she walking with a slight limp? Raze thought. The two adults continued to whisper to each other. From what he had learned, Crone and the Red Brigade clan were quite well connected, enough to ask him a favor to look after them. It seemed like they were just discussing the results of the meeting until the two of them turned to look at Raze. "Do you mind having a go at the measuring pillar again?" Crone asked. "Just use the 2-step shift like before and strike out." Not caring, he walked up to the pillar and prepared himself. Are they trying to see if I have the potential to join the Pagna Academy? If that is the case, I have a feeling they won't like the result. Raze had gone through the steps perfectly, and it was looking hopeful in Sunny's eyes. That was until the last moment when his fist was thrown out. "Why is it so weak?" Sunny blurted out loud, due to how shocked he was, and the number that had appeared on the pillar had soon proved it, as a 6 had appeared. "6!" Crone shouted, shaking his head. Even he couldn't believe it, but Raze knew why. It was simple. He was exhausted from climbing up all of those stairs. So his punch was less powerful than the last time. "Did you not absorb the chi pill I gave you?" Crone asked. The pill had already been used up, so Raze thought it was better in this situation to tell a lie, especially if Crone asked for it back. He just was hoping that it wouldn't open the doors to more problems or questions. "I did," Raze replied. "I felt better." The two adults looked at each other again, with Crone tapping his finger on the side of his face. "That was just a basic chi pill. Maybe he needs one at a higher grade. But that's not even something the Red Brigade gives their students. If it had no effect, then his body might be filled with more impurities than he thought." "All right, Raze," Crone said. "You did well. Why don't you go rest up in your room for today? It might just take a couple of days for the pill to have an effect." Walking off, Raze could see the two of them still talking about something, but he had no tools or spells to eavesdrop. It was no doubt about him, something that they didn't want him to hear. I could tell Mr. Crone was lying about the pill. I want to know what type of effect it will have on me as well. Raze thought. The important thing is the next step. What to do with the crystals. I can use one of them to create a mana potion. I need to create an item that allows me to keep track of my mana as well. Then, one crystal could be sold on the market. Maybe if I'm lucky, I can buy a chi pill and see how it goes, and the last one, to open a portal when I go back to that place. The main issue is, to get the items I need to head back into the town somehow. At night, all the markets will be closed. This might be difficult. Anyway, it's time for me to get my crystals. Raze thought as he entered the main hall. A little before the training had come to an end, Grin had entered Safa's room. Infuriated with what had happened, before he had realized it, his anger had taken over and he had destroyed everything that was in the room, including the mattress. However, he had struck a pot of gold because he had somehow found crystals. Pulling out the one he had seen, he could feel that there was something else underneath. Eventually, Grin had pulled out all 4 crystals. He held them together in his hands with his eyes sparkling the same as the crystals themselves. 4. I really have 4 of these things in my hand. This is unbelievable. How did those kids even have something like this in their room? Is it some type of fortune their family left them? Already, Grin's mind was going through all the things he could do with the crystals. With them, he wouldn't even have to worry about Mr. Crone anymore. Snapping out of his daydream, he shook his head and looked at the state of the room. Crap, I better get out of here. As long as no one sees I'm in here, they can't fully pin the blame on me. They can only suspect. Taking a step forward, the door slid open and Safa was standing inside the room. Immediately, her eyes looked onto one thing. It wasn't the state of the room. It wasn't Grin. It was the crystals that were in his hands. Safa's eyes were locked onto the crystals held in Grin's hand. Noticing what she was looking at, He quickly closed his fist. "These are mine," Grin declared immediately, a big smile on his face. She started to shake her head frantically upon hearing this. She remembered her brother's words well. Only she knew about the crystals, and if they were to go missing, then how would she explain what happened? All of the blame would be on her, and the relationship between the two of them would be broken. In a desperate attempt, with all the thoughts filling her head, she charged forward, aiming to snatch them out of Grin's hand. "Idiot," Grin said, as he pulled his hand away, and with his other hand, he made a fist, hitting her right on the side of her head. It was a solid hit that forced her whole body and head to hit the side of the wall. Going to the door, Grin slid it shut in case anyone walked by. "Did you really think I wouldn't hit you? I've been waiting to do that all day." Surprisingly, though, when Grin turned back around, Sappho was already up on her feet and had grabbed Grin by the neck. The two fell to the ground, and now she was trying to pry his hands open to get the crystals. It wasn't a display between two martial artists. Sappho didn't know much to begin with. It was a desperate attempt from her to do whatever she could to get those crystals out of Grin's hand. It was almost impossible. Using all her strength, she couldn't open any of his fingers. So, opening her mouth, she then bit down hard on the side of his forearm. The teeth sank in, and she tasted the slight tang of iron in her mouth. "You dirty witch!" Out of sheer anger, Grin threw a fist, hitting her on the side of her rib. A great pain surged through Sappho's body as she opened her mouth, but the hits didn't stop there. He continued to punch her on her side again and again, until a cracking sound was heard. It was clear that her rib had now broken, and she completely let go of Grin, rolling on the floor, holding her side. A wheezing fit started as she made soft noises from her mouth. "Did you think I wouldn't go this far or something?" Grin asked, getting up to his feet and walking toward her. He then lifted her up by pulling her hair so he could get a look at her face. He placed the crystals in his pocket and, lifting his hand up, he swung his hand with an open palm and gave her a big slap right across her cheek, sending almost a small shockwave in the room. It was so loud. For a moment, Sappho felt like she was going to pass out. "Did you think you had the protection of Mr. Crone? From the look you had on your face, you knew these crystals were here, but you have no idea of their worth," Grin explained. "With these, it doesn't matter if Mr. Crone kicks me out. Heck, I'll leave this place myself. All I have to do is hand one of these crystals to a clan, and they would happily accept me, and as a disciple no less. I could start to learn real martial arts, and not this secondhand fake nonsense." Grin then made a fist, pulling it back. "So you see, it doesn't matter what I do to you now. There is no one that can save you. You should have known your place. You are nothing in this world." The fist was thrown out and landed square right on her nose and mouth. The punch hit so hard that her lip had ripped into her teeth, and her head swung back, banging against the floor. Blood started to spill from her mouth, and she just lay there on the ground. "You're lucky I'm not a Pagno warrior yet, an official one anyway, so I would still get into trouble for killing you." Turning around, Grin was ready to leave the room until he felt something grab his back leg. Looking down, he could see Sappho had locked both hands around him. She was holding on as hard as she could. Those were Raze crystals. They were his, not Grin's. After hearing how much they were worth and how important they were, how could she let Grin take them? What had Raze been through? What had he done to obtain those things? She had one job, and that was to look after the crystals. Right now, she didn't care. If her life was taken, she would get those crystals back. "Are you a masochist or something? Do you enjoy feeling pain?" Grin was grinding his teeth. His foot lifted up, and he shoved it, hitting her right on the top of the head. The grip from Sappho was still strong, so he lifted his foot up and slammed it down again and again, hitting her on the head. In the end, he stopped aiming for the head and instead infused chi in his foot and slammed it down right on her forearm, breaking the bone. "GHHKKK." She tried to scream, but it sounded more like a strong whisper coming out from her mouth. No one from outside the room would be able to hear her words, and a few bangs here and there in a room for kids their age wouldn't be a cause for concern for someone to check up on them. "That was your own fault. I already let you go, and then you went ahead and did that. Stupid girl." Grin turned around. His happy mood from finding the crystals was now ruined. Reaching out, Grin went to slide the door open, but instead, the door slid open by itself on the other side. Standing by the door was a tall, white-haired boy. "What the F***CK are you doing in my room?" Raze asked. It was quite the surprise to see Grin in Raze's room. There was no reason for him to be there. What he was worried about more upon seeing him was whether or not he had found the crystals. They hadn't been hidden in the best place after all, but he didn't plan to keep them for long either. What is Safa doing? Shouldn't she have gotten here before me? Raze thought. For some reason, there was an uneasy look on Grin's face. He still hadn't said a word and had slight sweaty forehead. Taking a peek past his shoulder, Raze's eyes locked onto the state of the room. His heart thumped slightly stronger. His eyes started to follow around the room, and he noticed the mattress torn to shreds. Once again, his heart was beat even stronger than before, and his lips started to quiver. However, there was soon an odd smell that had entered his nose, a smell that he had become familiar with, the smell of blood. Parts of red could be seen on the side of the wall and on the floor, and the faint sound of wheezing was heard. Finally, his eyes landed on Safa. She was lying there on the floor, blood falling out from the side of her mouth, her lips cut. Her arm was bent out of shape in one way, and her face was swollen in more areas than one. Raze's heart started to not only beat stronger than before, but faster. It felt like it was going to jump out of his throat. The fact that Raze hadn't said anything was giving Grin chills. This guy, I've had an odd feeling since day one when I saw him. He's not going to suddenly care about his sister, is he? SH*T. What am I talking about? Anyone would do after putting her in that situation. If he tries to hit me then, I'll just have to fight back. I already decided to leave this place anyway. In the middle of his thoughts, Raze had walked straight past him, seemingly ignoring him. He then knelt down by his sister's side, getting a closer look at the wounds on her body. In that moment, Grin took this opportunity to get out of there. Sliding the door open, he fled out of the room, not turning back. On the ground, Safa was still conscious. She felt a presence next to her and looked at Raze. The moment she did, her eyes were filling up with tears. She had failed him, failed to protect the crystals. "Hey, idiot," Raze said. "Did you try and fight back?" Out of all the things that Raze could have said, she was shocked by these words. Why was that important right now? I saw the bite mark on his hands and him holding on to something. Raze continued, turning his head at the mattress before going back to look at Safa. "Just answer my question. Did you fight back?" Hearing a little annoyance in Raze's tone, Safa had decided to give a nod, although it was painful for her to do so. Letting out a big sigh, Raze sunk his head into his chest and looked at the ground. "I heard our family has no name," Raze explained. "I've never felt like I've had a family before, but I did have a name once, a second one, given to me by my family. But they weren't family. They were just demons in human skin. You listened to me. You are the second person who has ever tried to help me. You did well, and right now there's this great pain in my chest. So I want to ask you a question. In the end, I decided to give myself the family name of Cromwell." "So, Safa," Raze said, looking deep in her eyes, "as a reward for you listening to me, I ask you, do you accept the family name Cromwell?" Safa didn't know what Raze was talking about, or his random mumblings, but she could feel a great pain in his words and strength behind them. Her tears had completely blurred her vision and were rolling down the side of her cheek. A connection, with the same name as each other, the two would have a connection and feel like a real family. Slowly once again, Safa gave a nod. "You are a Cromwell now," Raze stated. "Don't ever forget it." Walking outside, Crone had finished his talk with Sunny, and as he was heading to his office, he had noticed that Raze's room had their door open, and immediately the scene caught his eyes. Crone ran across and burst into the room. "What happened to her? What is this?" Crone asked. "She needs to go see a doctor, straight away. There's no time," Raze said, staying in his knelt-down position. "The physician," Mr. Crone thought, "but the closest one is in town. I'll have to carry her on my back." Not hesitating, Crone picked up Safa. He tried to do so carefully, but she was still grunting in pain. Wasting no time, he quickly ran out of the temple and headed down the long staircase that led into the town. These wounds, they look like physical wounds. Why was she in a state like this? Mr. Crone thought. It couldn't have been Raze. He doesn't even have the skills to do something like this. Could it be? An image of Grin and the mushroom incident had flashed into his mind. It appears I have made a grave mistake. If that kid managed to go this far, then there is no saving him. He will no longer be allowed in the temple. But first I have to save her. Back in the room, Raze was still on the floor on his knees. He was looking at the state of the room and the blood on the ground. His heart was still thumping loudly. Why would such a person go far, just because he asked them to do a simple thing? She was truly an idiot. This feeling, I didn't know it would be so soon that I would feel it again. Raze slowly got up off the floor and looked at the mattress again. It looks like for the first time, you and me are in agreement. Raze could feel his body reacting more and more as he thought about his sister. This dark, deep feeling that was rising to the surface wasn't an unfamiliar feeling for Raze. He who dared to steal crystals from me, and he who harmed your sister. Dark magic had activated out of Raze's body and was swirling around his hands, running up his arm. A few objects on the floor around him were starting to move, reacting to the mana flow in the air. Where is this little F***CK Grin? He's dead. After exiting Raze's room, Grin immediately ran across the large hall and took a left. He passed several of the other sliding doors that belonged to those staying at the temple. Finding his own door, he slid it open and closed it behind him. Standing behind the door, Grin took quick, deep breaths. What was that? Grin thought. Why is it every time I see that guy, he gives me the creeps? He's not even a person I want to kick his arse crap, but now I have to figure out what to do. Bringing out the crystals from his pocket, Grin checked to see that they were still there. As he did so, he dropped the crystals frantically on the ground. His palms were covered in sweat. Quickly, he bent down to pick them up and place them back in his pocket. Everything is okay. Everything is fine. Grin thought. I already made the decision to leave this place. She's not dead, so they can't punish me for anything. The worst thing they'll do is kick me out, and I can just use the crystals to join another clan anyway. These thoughts continued to repeat in his head as a way to calm him down. But before he knew it, he had already grabbed a bag and was packing his belongings into it. He didn't have much. Most of the temple kids didn't have much. Just a few personal items and clothing that they had bought with pocket change they would get from Crone now and again. Screw it, Grin thought. The best thing to do is to leave now. I know they're going to kick me out anyway. So what's the point in staying and getting an earful from Mr. Crone? It's just not worth it. Slinging the leather bag over his back, he pulled on the string that would close the top and slid the door open. He took a peek to the right and left. Seeing no one, he decided to make a break for it, leaving through the main entrance door. Hearing a bunch of noise outside, Simeon slid his door slightly, managing to catch the tail end of Grin leaving. I wonder where he's going at this time. Grin's feet shuffled down the stairs of the main building and onto the courtyard. Taking a few steps, he soon stopped dead in his tracks as he looked up ahead. A white-haired figure stood in the center of the courtyard, all on his own. The sun behind him was starting to set as it went behind the town, and darkness was starting to fill the sky. You, Grin shouted, swinging his arm. What are you doing? Trying to stop me. The right side of Raze's mouth curled upwards. I believe you have something that belongs to me. I don't have a clue what you're talking about. And if you don't move out of my way, I'll beat you. Grin said, starting to walk forward, heading towards Raze. I was hoping you would say that, because I really didn't want a reason to hold back. Rushing forward, Grin placed chi into each of his steps. It was something only he could do compared to other students, not just utilizing chi when doing a skill like the two-step shift. He then channeled it from his stomach into his fist, ready to close the distance and pound Raze. For Raze, however, he didn't move. Instead, he placed his hand out by his side, and dark magic started to swirl around his hand, looking like a visible liquid moving about. What is that? Grin had never seen anything like it. This wasn't chi. It wasn't any type of fighting technique he had seen or heard of. Still, he chose to go forward. I saw the score he got on that pillar. He can't best me. Dark Pulse, Raze announced, moving his hand out. The magic pulsated out an inch away from his palm and shot out, hitting Grin in the stomach. The attack was heavy, causing spit and all the air to shoot out of his mouth. He was lifted off his feet and fell on his back. "Oh, a hole didn't appear through your body," Raze mused, taking a few steps forward. "Maybe it's all that training Crone made you do. Or perhaps this is what it means to have chi. Anyway, it looks like between martial arts versus magic, magic is the winner at the moment," Raze remarked, stopping about 3 meters from Grin. Grin managed to rise, one hand on his stomach, his face contorted in pain. "What did you do?" Grin shouted, charging in again, this time performing the two-step shift. But Raze already had dark magic swirling from his hand. Dark Pulse. The attack hit Grin again, feeling harder than before. His body wasn't able to handle the impact as well, and a bit of blood spat out before he fell once more. "You see, to use your martial arts and this chi of yours, you have to get close to your opponent. If you can't get close, it's useless," Raze commented. No longer was Grin trying to stand and fight back. Instead, he used his hands to try and crawl away to get off the ground. "What is this? Who is this person? I knew there was something off with this freak. He's a monster. What the heck is he using?" Grin eventually managed to half rise and turned away, his back towards Raze. "But recently, I discovered something quite fascinating," Raze commented, assuming a fighting stance with his fist out in front of him. His feet moved, performing the two-step shift, and he threw out his hand. Dark Strike. The pulse unleashed was stronger than before and was aimed right at Grin's leg. The energy was condensed and hit Grin right in the foot. Not only did it hit him, but the attack also pierced through his leg and struck the ground, breaking it. "Arg!" Grin screamed as he fell to the floor and looked at his leg. There was a hole through the side of his calf, and even part of his bone could be seen. "Arg!" Grin continued to scream. Raze walked over, kicking Grin in the chest. Even in his weakened state, he was able to do something like this after wearing his opponent down. Grin was no longer in any state to fight. Tears were rolling down his face, and he was focused on one thing. He just wanted to live. Bending down, Raze began to search Grin and eventually found the crystals. Taking them, he placed them in his own pocket. "Stealing from me was a bad decision, kid. Did you even use your brain for a moment? How do you think I was able to obtain these crystals? Did you think you could take them from someone capable of acquiring them?" Taking his foot off Grin's chest, Raze pressed down hard on Grin's left wrist. "However, the worst thing you did was touch a Cromwell," Raze said, his hand swelling with magic. "Is this one of the hands, the mighty hands, that did all of that to her?" Grin stared into Raze's eyes, trying to plead with him in some way. But he saw the same look he had caught in Raze's eyes a few times before. They felt dark, lifeless, as if there was no humanity in them to begin with. As Raze continued, there seemed to be no emotion in him. No matter what Grin said, he wouldn't have been able to escape this situation. Dark Pulse. The attack left Raze's hand and hit the palm of Grin's, creating a hole that could be seen through. Dark Pulse. Raze declared again, destroying another large chunk of Grin's hand. "Arg!" Grin screamed, kicking his legs. Dark Pulse. The attack was used once more, leaving no hand in sight. Just a bloody small wrist. His hand had completely vanished. There was almost no blood on the ground, as it looked scorched black by the magic, having evaporated the blood entirely. Lifting his leg, Raze waited. Immediately, he saw Grin trying desperately to rise. It was a dire situation, and it was finally time. Raze had done enough. "Let's finish this," Raze declared. Raze's hand was pointed toward the back of Grin's head. Grin had gotten to his feet and was heading toward the temple exit, limping, much like Raze had seen Safa do earlier. Seeing this, Raze's determination was confirmed. "Raze, don't!" A loud scream came from the temple doors. Raze turned his head to see who it was and spotted Simeon running towards him. "Stop! Don't do something you'll regret," Simeon shouted, and it looked like he was almost going to rugby-tackle him. Raze glanced at where Grin had been, but he had completely disappeared. "Damn it," Raze thought, lowering his hand and dispelling his magic. If he managed to escape that quickly, did he use some type of skill? Or maybe she aided him. "I can't believe it, especially with that injured leg. In my condition, I'll never catch up to him." With that thought in mind, he turned to look at Simeon, his eyebrows furrowed. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" Simeon, out of breath from his sprint, stopped just short. "Look, I dislike the guy as much as anyone, but you can't go around hurting people. It seemed like you were going to kill him. Do you really want that burden on your shoulders?" Simeon asked. "Killing people? Let me ask you, if a wild animal killed your family or attacked them, would you use everything you had to kill it?" Raze countered. Unbeknownst to Raze, beasts from a portal had killed Simeon's family in the past. The scenario Raze described resonated deeply with Simeon. "Of course I would. I'd do anything to protect myself and my family," Simeon replied. "Exactly. What I'm doing is protecting me and my family right now. The problem you have is that you treat humans, beasts, and animals differently. In reality, it's all the same. If anything, humans are far crueler than any of those beasts. Beasts act on instinct, whereas people make the decision to act." Raze exclaimed. Raze continued to stare at the direction Gren had taken off to, but hope seemed fleeting. After what he had done, the chance of Gren returning was slim. As for Simeon, he couldn't stop mulling over Raze's words. "Remember this, Simeon, you're the one who let him get away. If he returns, he might do far worse than what he did to Safa today. That will be on you," Raze said, walking past Simeon and heading back inside the temple. For Raze to speak like this, to see humans and beasts as the same thing, it was hard for Simeon to comprehend, and in fact, he didn't see them the same. It was clear that he thought humans were worse. Just what type of life did you go through? Is it because your family was killed by humans, unlike mine by monsters? Simeon thought, but then the other words had hit Simeon as he realized what he had said. "Wait, what happened to Safa? Is she okay? Raze, talk to me," Simeon shouted, chasing after him. It had been tough for Raze. He had used Dark Pulse several times, having exerted a lot of his mana. He needed a rest, and he was wondering just how much did Simeon see. Gren had entered the forest just outside the temple, his leg throbbing with pain from the hole Raze had inflicted. In the heat of the moment, seeing an opportunity while Raze was distracted, a surge of chi erupted from the depths of his being. This chi was more potent than any adrenaline rush. It gave Gren the strength to run on his injured leg, but the power was fleeting. Unsure if Raze was pursuing him, Gren decided to seek refuge in the forest. With the sun now fully set, the surroundings were pitch black and it was frightening. At every turn of a tree, every sound of bushes moving, he thought he would see the white-haired figure, but it was just his imagination. Eventually, Gren found a large rock to rest upon. He needed a moment to catch his breath as all of the chi had been used up. What was that? What did he use on me? He tore right through my leg and my hand. My damn hand's gone. Gren's panic was evident. His situation was dire. He couldn't return to the temple, fearing not only Mr. Crone but the white-haired boy's wrath as well. Moreover, with the crystals taken from him, no clan would accept him now. Lifting his hand up again, he realized that the situation was a lot worse. With this injury, I'll be labeled as disabled by everyone. Can I even find a job to sustain myself? Examining his wounds, he noticed they had been cauterized, so at least he wasn't bleeding. That was one less concern. Dying in the middle of the woods and being eaten by the animals around. Maybe it was the best choice for him. Venturing further into the forest, Gren reflected on the events leading to his current predicament. Despite feeling hopeless, he had a strong will to survive. It propelled him to distance himself from the temple. The sound of running water had entered Gren's ears. Up ahead, a stream trickled down from mountain. Several stepping stones led to it. Overcome with thirst, Gren approached the stream with caution. He didn't want to risk falling in. But as he neared the water, an oddity in the air caught his attention. Are those sparks? The sight resembled a fireworks display, illuminating and shimmering in the darkness. The sparks grew until they formed a vast, glowing circle right before him. Though unfamiliar, a chilling realization dawned upon Gren. Is this? No, it can't be. A portal. Gren whirled around, intending to flee, but several thin tentacles emerged from the portal. They wrapped around his head, face, and legs, lifting him into the air before yanking him inside. As he was pulled in, the portal snapped shut, disappearing as abruptly as it had appeared. The next day had arrived, and it was an odd experience for the children. Throughout the night, rumors had already spread about Gren's disappearance. This was because Mr. Crone had returned relatively late in the night to inform Raze that his sister was going to be okay. It wasn't a quiet entrance by Mr. Crone by any means, and even before that, most of the children were worried since they heard the sounds of screams from outside. Although with them being young, they were too scared to venture outside. The news had been overheard, and it was then the two twins noticed that Gren was no longer in his room. The word had spread, and the kids were starting to form their own opinions about what had happened. Did you see Raze in Safa's room? It was completely trashed. Yeah, I even saw blood. Do you think Gren did something? He had to have done something. Didn't you hear? Safa is currently staying in town with the physician. He must have done something and got kicked out. I heard that he ran away. Apparently, the twins have no clue where he's gone either. All the children could do was make guesses, but in their hearts, they felt a slight bit of relief knowing that Gren was gone. There were times when they had seen the way he looked at them. If they obtained an ounce of praise when practicing martial arts from Crone, they would feel his wrath in one way or another, even if it was small things such as name-calling. It was clear that Gren was the only one allowed to shine before. At the moment, all the children were sitting down having breakfast together. Mr. Crone, for a change, had decided to make the breakfast, allowing the children to talk and gossip among themselves. But there was one person who didn't seem to be in the mood, and that was Simeon. He lifted the liquid of his soup up in his spoon and then tilted it, allowing it to splash back down into his bowl. You know, it's rude to play with your food, Raze commented, sitting right next to him. He regretted saying those words as it was a habit. He realized that maybe the same habits didn't cross through different worlds. I know. I'm sorry, Simeon replied. It was quite apparent that he wasn't his usual self, and it was because he had a lot on his mind. Look at Raze, his sister is with the physician, and he doesn't seem worried at all. And what was that yesterday? He did all of that, and he's acting like nothing happened. Simeon thought, but there was an even bigger question on his mind. What even was it that he did? I mean, how was he able to beat Gren and hurt him so badly? I couldn't see what happened. It was just a feeling I had that if I didn't stop him back then, something bad would have happened. Crap. What's worse is that it means that Raze was actually stronger than Gren. Does that now make me close to being the weakest in this whole temple? How am I meant to get stronger? How am I meant to even get into the Pagna Academy at this rate? Should I ask Raze? I mean, if he was able to defeat Gren, then he must know something, right? But it just feels so awkward after he scolded me yesterday. In all honesty, Raze didn't care about what Simeon did the night before. The main thing was that he had gotten his crystals back, and if he had actually killed Gren, then there would have been a lot more problems on his plate. The reason Raze was being a little quieter than usual towards Simeon was that he was trying to gauge what he knew. Did he see me use magic yesterday? But then why hasn't he said anything? Even if he hasn't said anything to me, he had plenty of chances to talk to Mr. Crone about it last night. Perhaps he didn't see anything. Even if he did see something, he wouldn't understand what he saw anyway, but it's still bugging me. He knows what happened to Gren, and yet says nothing. Could it be? Is he planning to blackmail me? Both of them looked at each other with the corner of their eye at that moment, before quickly looking away from each other. Eventually, breakfast had ended, and Mr. Crone had told everyone that they were free to rest for the day. There was no need to do chores. In the meantime, he had invited Raze to meet him in his office. I want to talk to you a bit more about your sister, Raze, Mr. Crone said. I'm sure you're worried about her, but if there is one thing you don't have to be frightened about, it's Gren coming back and doing her harm. If I see him, I'll beat that child myself and send him off to the Light faction to deal with him if I have to. Mr. Crone had noticed he had gotten a little carried away and cleared his throat. Anyway, what I wanted to ask was whether you wanted to come to town and see your sister. You wouldn't be on your own. The two of us can go together. I will ask Simeon to make sure the kids stay in the temple for the time being. Mr. Crone suggested. Raze quickly tilted his head down, not because he was upset, but because he needed to hide the smile that had naturally appeared on his face. This is great, Raze thought. I was trying to think of a way to head into town to buy some items. If I manage to get my hands on some objects, using the crystals and my dark magic, I can make what I need to return to that portal. When I do, I'll gather even more crystals this time and become a 2-star magician. After that, I can continue from there and return to Altarian, getting rid of all of the Grand Magus. Ray's plan felt so perfect that he wanted to let out his laughter right there and then, but he held it in for fear Mr. Crone would think he was mad. "Of course, sir," Raze answered. "Let's go check on Sappha, and let's get some items," he mumbled. Meanwhile, in his room, Simeon was continuing to mull over several things in his mind. If I really continue like this, I won't become anything. I don't exactly agree with Ray's view, but I can see his point. If you don't ask, you don't get, right? Lifting his body up from the bed, Simeon had found new determination. I'll ask him a way to get stronger, and if he doesn't want to teach me, I can always just blackmail him with the situation about Grin. It's perfect. Although it had only been a few days, it felt like a long time since Raze had stepped into a place as lively as he saw now. He had finally entered the town Rumptum, a small place with a population of a few thousand people. It was incredibly small compared to the cities on Altarian that would be filled with millions, but it was nice for a change. What Raze couldn't get used to, though, was the lack of modern technology. How things were being pulled by carts and carried by workers, but then there would be a few sites of more advanced work. There was electricity, as lights and certain appliances could be seen running on it. However, either the town they were in now had a lack of electricity, or it was something new. It was hard to tell since most would use oil lamps or candles. As the two walked through the streets, Raze was keeping an eye out on the several different types of stores. There were specialist stores that sold equipment such as swords, armor, and general weapons. Then there were stores that sold food and produce, and stores that sold nearly everything. They were one-stop shops of sorts. Finally, there were the roaming merchants who would have a big carriage behind them and had in place all the goods they had received from all different places. There's none that seemed to be selling beast crystals. I didn't see any last time either. If I go to one of the merchants, then they will probably just run off with the crystals like Grin did. I need someone who's not so squeaky clean that they would tell everyone about my business, and at the same time someone who won't stab me in the back thinking I'm an easy target. But before that, there's a bigger problem I have. Race's eyes glared at Crone, who was by his side. Due to the current situation of him being targeted, no one was meant to leave his side. The two had reached the physician's house. It was a building that matched the style of the rest, with the sloping and upward roofs, giving it that Eastern style from his world. The building itself was larger than most of the buildings in the area and was stationed near the Red Brigade clan building. It would be where they would get most of their business from, since the Pagno warriors were the ones that got injured the most. I guess it pays to be a doctor in this world. I wonder if my potions will have an effect on the people here as well. If they do, I might be a good tool to make some coin, and with that, I would be able to buy beast crystals without the need to go through the dangerous portals, allowing me to get back to what I was at a quick rate. There were so many plans that Raze wanted to implement, but he was just quite limited by his situation at the moment. Entering the physician's building, there was a single large hall divided by several rooms. They would be blocked off by dividers that were constantly opening and closing as people were running back and forth between them, fetching stuff. The smell, it was pungent and was making Ray's stomach feel queasy, and there was the noise, the sound of people in pain, screaming, and sick. It reminded him a lot of a hospital, a place that was always close to death. An old man in dark gray robes had approached the two. His clothes were tattered, his hair a mess, and there were large bags under his eyes, as well as blood on his clothes. Suddenly, Raze didn't think it was such a good job to be a doctor. "Thank you for looking after Sappha, Crinter," Mr. Crone said. Mr. Crinter didn't say any words, as if he was too tired to even open his mouth. He shook his weak hand, gesturing for the two to follow him over as he finally led them to a room. The door slid open. Laid out on the mat on the ground was Sappha. She had been bandaged. Her mouth, where there was a large cut on the bottom, had been stitched up. There was also this strange green paste that had been placed all over her wounds, with a pot of it off to the side. What was a surprise, or not totally a surprise, was there was another person in the room as well. "You two finally made it down," Sonny said with a smile. When I got word of what happened to Safa, I was worried that someone might have been after the two of you. But it looks like you're completely fine, Raze. I see. I haven't had time to inform you of the situation, Mr. Crone said. But I don't think it was an attack from the outside. One of the two of us talk on the outside while Raze has some time with his sister. Raze knew who the main suspect was. In fact, there was no suspect. He knew who did this. The adults were just going to talk to try to hide things from the kids that they didn't really need to hide. Sitting down by Safa's side, the pain in his chest continued. It was becoming a normal reaction for the body when he saw his sister, and he was starting to get used to it rather than annoyed at it. Hey, I got some payback for your sister, so you should calm down a little. Look, it seems like she's sleeping peacefully, Raze thought. Looking at the room, though, he couldn't imagine the place was very sanitary. They had alcohol and boiling hot water, so they could disinfect most tools, but the room itself would be hard to disinfect, especially since they didn't seem to have things such as simple gloves. She should be fine, but with stitches like that on her lip, she'll have a scar, and her broken arm wrapped up in a sling will take a few months to heal properly. Since you getting hurt was partly to do with me, it would have been nice if I could heal you. Unfortunately, dark magic has no healing properties. There was one type of magic that would be able to help in this sort of situation, though, and that was light magic. So far, Raze hadn't been able to get any other attribute of magic. If he wanted to do things like create healing potions and heal with his own powers himself, then he would need to do so. The issue was, now that he had a dark core, light magic would be the hardest attribute to raise. The easiest way would be to find a beast that had a great affinity with light magic, take its crystal and absorb it whole. After gaining at least some light magic, he could slowly increase it in other ways, but it would still be difficult due to his dark core. That has made me wonder. The Dark faction had a cultivation technique that allowed me to increase the darkness attribute. Does that mean the light faction might have a technique that could also increase my light attribute? It would make sense, right? And what about all the other factions and clans? It could be very possible that every one of these clans has a cultivation that would be able to help me increase my magic in every area. Earth, light, dark, fire, water are just the basics. I might even be able to obtain the special attributes, moon, space, and more. This world truly wants to bless me. Raze soon looked down upon the injured Safa. She still seemed to be asleep. With these thoughts from before, something else popped into his head. Wait a second. Safa has a sacrificial nature. She sacrificed herself in order to protect those crystals. Doesn't she have the perfect start for the light attribute magic herself? What if I taught her how to use magic, and she had a light magic core? She would be able to gain affinity with light fairly quickly, and she would even be able to create items like magic potions. With an eye half open, Safa was wondering why her brother was smirking so evilly by her side. Thinking about the prospect of teaching another person magic was quite interesting to Raze, but as he thought about it more, he realized there were larger problems to consider. While he was the only one who knew his secret, he could control himself. Who knew how others would react if they learned of magic, especially since right now, even someone at the top of the initial stage would be able to best him in a fight like Beatrix, and there were plenty above that. This also brought up the initial trust factor. If Raze suddenly taught her magic, wouldn't she ask questions? And if she eventually found out that Raze wasn't her real brother, there was a chance of betrayal, something he had already experienced too much in his previous life. On top of that, for some reason, the clan leader's words keep hitting me in the head. I have no idea if this body had betrayed his own family or not. If it is the case, then it would have meant the original owner of this body would have wanted Safa dead as well. This was a long shot because he wondered why his body would react a certain way when looking at his sister, if that was the case. But there was another possibility. Safa survived that day as well. If the clan leader's suspicion is on point, then there is a good chance that day everyone was meant to die in the family apart from Safa, and there was a chance that she could be the one that plotted to kill her own family. For now, he couldn't do anything rash until he solved those problems. Eventually, Sunny and Crone had returned to the room, both of them with half-hearted smiles. They didn't know what was the best face to have in this type of situation. Not many people did. Raze, there is some business I have with the Red Brigade while I am here. Crone stated. Sunny will be staying here with your sister. So I wanted to ask if you wish to come with me or stay here until we head back. Standing up from the floor, it looked like Raze had made a decision, but he actually had something else in mind. Can I explore the town on my own? Raze asked. But, Raze, we can't do that. You know that there are people after you? Sunny said. I know. Raze clenched his fist. But can't I make my own decisions? I mean, you guys are going to let me go after a year anyway, right? If I can't protect myself now, then how is it going to be different in a year's time? Besides, I want to live and explore my life a bit. Say I turn 16, leave the temple, and get stabbed in the back. Or let's say I stay at the temple, and something like what happened to Sappha happens to me, only that I end up dead. So I get to live a few days more, but trapped in a temple of all things? Look, I know you guys have done a lot, protecting Sappha, but I'm my own person. You don't need to babysit me. Both Crone and Sunny looked at each other. They knew Raze was making sound arguments. You're right, Crone said. You can make your own decisions. We can only advise you on your journey. You know, Raze, you sound more and more like a Pagna warrior by the day. We will leave together when the sun starts to set. If you travel in the city, stay in crowded places, and try to always be within 100 meters of a clan member if possible. It will help you out if need be. The convincing was a lot easier than Raze thought, and he was thankful for that. Otherwise, for him to progress, he would have had to consider leaving the temple and trying to find a new place of shelter. After leaving the physician's place, Raze walked around outside for a while. He was passing most of the shops, having a peek here and there, but he was mostly trying to check and see if there was anyone following him. It wouldn't be much of a surprise for them to have put someone on me, Raze thought. It's a good way for them to catch their target as well if they needed to, but it seemed like the two of them were too busy involved in their own things to do that. It was good news for Raze. Heading all over the place, Raze had eventually stopped outside a shop with barrels outside. It was filled with all sorts of different equipment, old machinery, sewing kits, and even had weapons here and there. People were coming in and out with items and coming out with coin. This is it, Raze said, his hands on his side. A pawn shop. These are the type of places that have connections. Since nowhere is selling beast crystals, it's most likely an item that not everyone can find a buyer for. But a pawn shop has to have contacts with experts from all over the place. Not only that, but pawn shop people are complete scum. They're always trying to undervalue the worth of one's items and might even claim that some items are fake, yet still buy it off you. These are the type of people I need. Raze waited until he could see that the shop was empty. Since the town wasn't full of people in the first place, the shop would have around one customer or so every hour. Entering through the front door, the shop was even more disorganized on the inside. There were helmets hung up on the wall with pieces of armor, jewels placed in cabinets and tables on the side. On the other side was a man who had a pear-shaped body, a small top but a large belly and bottom. He had his trousers up fairly high, just above his belly button, and a long, winding mustache. He actually stood out quite a bit among the other people who Raze had seen so far. I don't deal with time wasters here. If you have no money or nothing of value, then shoo, the man said. Raze wasn't offended, based on his basic temple clothing and his age. Most people would be considered time wasters. With a smile on his face, he glanced back behind him to make sure no one else was inside the shop. Then, pulling out a crystal from his hand, he placed it down on the counter. A clinking noise was made as the crystal hit the glass. Hey, if you damage my shop, you're paying for it even if I need to use your body. The man shouted, and his mouth soon opened wide as his eyes sparkled, and his head tilted back. Is that a power stone? The man said in amazement. Power stone, Raze thought. In his world, they called them beast crystals, but he supposed it was quite normal for other places to have different names for these things. It is, Raze confidently answered. I'm looking to sell this, and believe me, I know it's worth, so don't try to scam me with this. If you do, my boss will be very upset. It would be hard to believe that a non-Pagna warrior and a person so young had gotten their hands on this power stone. So Raze had come up with a backstory that would hopefully make sure the man didn't try anything. He had brought out a magnifying glass and was looking at the crystal carefully. Are you sure you know it's worth, kid? The man replied. If you did, you wouldn't have brought it to a place like this. And your boss, the man made bunny ears with his fingers saying this word. wouldn't have sent you here of all places. In a small town like this, there are only two things you can do. You can have it sent off to an auction, but they will take a percentage of your earnings. Having just one isn't worth your time, or you would have to have a connection with the clans to try and sell something like this. Now, it made sense why no one was publicly selling power crystals. Sunny had explained how the crystals could be used to make cheap pills, so only the Pagno warriors had a use for them. It was far too small for a town for the rich merchants to look for power crystals here, especially a clan that didn't even own a portal. I'll tell you what, kid. I know someone who will buy this from you. Let me just give him a call, and he'll be here in a moment. You don't mind waiting, do you? The man asked. With no other solution, Raze nodded, and he took the crystal off the counter before the man could take it away. The two looked at each other in the eye for a moment, while the man went out the back. Wait a moment, call? Do they have phones here? This place really is a mix of technology, isn't it? I guess it will be a landline-like service, though, rather than a mobile. Probably only a few places have one. Not even Crone has one at the temple. Raze thought. After waiting a few minutes, the door opened, and a large-headed, bald man had entered. He was wearing a sleeveless shirt that showed the outside of his large muscular arms, and he was around 6 feet tall. I don't have a good feeling about this, Raze thought. As soon as the man had entered, he had closed the door and pushed in a button on the handle. A clicking sound was heard, and a large smile appeared on his face. Kid, why don't you take this as a free lesson, the pawn shop owner said. I don't know where you found that power stone from, but having something so valuable in your hands is just going to make you a target. Raze stood there in the center, his fists shaking. I thought something like this could happen. It was a variable you always considered, Raze. Just take a deep breath. After taking a deep breath, Raze opened his mouth. Just let me walk back out that door with the crystals in my hand, and no one has to get hurt. The large man and the shop owner just started to laugh. The large man immediately rushed over and grabbed Raze up by the collar, lifting him up in the air. Hand the crystals over now, he shouted. His body sunken. Not saying a word, Raze lifted his hand and opened his palm, pointing toward the man's face. His lips were quivering, his body shaking, until he finally opened his mouth. Don't touch me. Dark pulse. The magic gathered around his hand, and before the man could react, the pulse went out and had gone right through the man's head, making a large hole. His body fell over backward, dropping Raze onto the ground. What the? You killed him, what the? The owner was looking for a way out of the place. He started to run out the back, but Raze was already on his feet and had his hand pointed at the owner. Dark pulse. The attack left his hand and went right through the owner's body and through his heart, dropping him to the floor. Ah, crap, Raze said, scratching his head. What do I do now? Out of the dead bodies, a strange dark smoke appeared and made its way toward Raze. It entered through the pores of his skin, connecting with his dark core inside and lighting up the ring on his finger. Dark attribute. 18. Well, that's one way to confirm their death, Raze thought. The effect of having a dark magic core was that certain actions would increase one's affinity with dark magic, and one of them was taking a life. Having taken 2 lives, he had an increase of 2 points, but the expression on Raze's face didn't look like he was pleased at all. His eyes were fixed on the large man who was lying flat on the floor. His head wasn't bleeding, even though there was a hole through it. It was one of the effects of using dark magic. I told myself that I wouldn't do stuff like this again, Raze said, as he raised both hands to the side of his head. If all his hair wasn't white already, he was sure some of it would have started to gray due to the stress. Who am I kidding? Knowing me, it was always going to turn out like this. I just didn't think it would happen so soon. I guess I need to try and sort something out. The first thing Raze did was partially open the outside door and turn the wooden signboard that was hung from open to closed. He then closed the door and locked it, making sure no one could get inside. Now he needed to figure out what to do with the bodies. Searching around the area, he looked at the items to come up with some sort of plan, and eventually he found a couple of swords. It wasn't so uncommon for the general public to carry around weapons, even if they weren't Pagno warriors, and Raze could use this in his favor. The first thing he did was drag the body from behind the counter around to the main floor of the shop. Shortly after, he braced himself for a few moments. People like you guys don't tend to have families, right? Or anyone that loves you. Yeah, I mean, look at their ugly faces. They would be lucky to even be compared to a potato, Raze told himself as he shoved the sword deep into the shop owner's chest. Now blood did start to pour on the ground. Similarly, Raze had to do the same with a large man, but with another weapon. The main issue was he had to stab through a skull, which was a lot harder work than he thought. In fact, with his strength, it was near impossible. In the end, the man's head was unrecognizable, and Raze wasn't sure if it was better or worse. After creating a few more stab wounds with each other's weapons, though, he was finally done and covered in sweat, sitting down on the ground away from the crime scene he had created. A disagreement between business partners in the pawn industry. That doesn't sound too far-fetched. Maybe them two killing each other at the same time is a bit dramatic, but it will have to do, Raze thought. It's unlikely that they would ever pin the blame on me anyway, and the Red Brigade clan has been investigating a string of murders. So what's one more to add to the list? I'm just a weak, fragile boy in their eyes anyway. Taking a look at the crime scene one more time, Raze wished he still had his expertise in magic to spice it up a bit, but it would have to do. He was counting on one thing, though. Having touched everything and everyone, my fingerprints are all over the place. They won't have anything that will allow them to pin this on me. Heck, even if they did have a fingerprint system, they wouldn't have mine. There were two reasons why Raze had come to the pawn shop. One of them was to sell the crystal, but after selling the crystal, he had planned to buy a few items. Now that there's no shop owner, that just means all the items in here are free, right? Raze started to look around with this thought in mind. In his possession were still 4 crystals, and there was no longer a need for him to sell them for income. Right now, he was looking for items that he could enhance with black magic that would give him the best effect. The trickiest part in all of this is because of my black magic. Every item that I enhance will have a cursed effect. In the end, Raze had selected a few items to enhance, and with the shop floor being relatively large, he could do his enhancements right there on the shop floor. The first item he had chosen was a black robe. There weren't many figures that went around walking in black robes, at least not Pagna warriors, but they were also sold in quite a few places. He could understand, since a robe wouldn't protect one from a sword whereas armor would. However, he did remember seeing some of the Pagna warriors in the Portal world wearing light clothing as well, and there was also the founder of the Dark faction, the statue that the children were made to clean. He also wore a robe that covered up his face. Maybe that's why so many robes are for sale, but not many people wear them. Raze thought as he was drawing up the magic circle underneath. He remembered a lot of the basic enhancements, and the dark magic would always make it slightly better than what he had learned. But the one thing he never knew about was what type of curse effect the item would have. Placing the magic crystal down, with the magic emitting from his hands, it swirled down and activated the circle. The crystal was starting to break down, and the robe started to glow with a faint purple on the outside. The crystal had completely disappeared, and the robe fell back to the floor. "Show me your effects," Raze asked. Black magic whispered out of his mouth, reacting with the robe, and an image started to appear in front of him, written out. A basic cursed robe. While Raze gazed at the magical robe, he began to reminisce about his days of studying when he had learned about the creation of magical items. Creating a magical item was usually a rather intricate process because there were several components that needed to be in place for it to work. Firstly, a magic formation had to be created, and depending on these formations, they would yield different effects on items. Moreover, not all items could have the same formations applied to them. In this case, there was a lot of trial and errors were costly because the materials would still be used up. Other factors that needed to align were the star magic of the user and the quality of materials. Since Raze was a 1-star mage, he could only employ 1-star formations, and given he only possessed a basic beast crystal, or, as they called it in this world, a basic power stone, it could only be used for 1-star formations. So, the mage's level, knowledge of higher formations, and the quality of the power stone used on the right equipment all had to be there. A significant part of being a skilled and gifted mage was one's dedication to research and studying, something Raze had done abundantly, maybe even more than usual, as it had propelled him to become a 9-star mage. There was even more to creating magical items than this, though, and that was the type of magic used. Although the formations added basic effects from the crystal, the type of magic would slightly alter those effects. For instance, if a health potion was created with the same formation and crystal but with light magic in one instance and wind magic in another, the two potions might have different effects. The one with light magic might heal more, while the wind magic potion might restore health and enhance the user's agility. This was precisely why it was essential for mages not to focus solely on one attribute. However, Raze only possessed dark magic, which had its unique effects. The formations he had used would give items the effect as if a Tier 2 or maybe even a Tier 3 formation had been employed, making the items more potent than others. The downside was that all the items were cursed, and the cursed effect could change each time. Basic Cursed Magic Robe. The magic robe can be concealed within the current user's clothing and summoned at will. The magic robe is capable of lowering the user's visibility with increased effectiveness at night. The magic robe can store items in a separate space. The stored items cannot be larger than the robe itself, and each item stored will occupy a certain amount of storage space. The third effect, storage, is what I was aiming for. If I'm going to continue gathering power stones, then I need a place to hide them so that the same thing that happened last time doesn't occur again, Raze thought. The other effects are additional, though. I originally chose a robe because I wanted to conceal my face when encountering more people and sneaking around, but these additional effects might come in handy. Taking a deep breath, it was time to read what the cursed effects were, because it was quite possible that they would outweigh the positive effects, making it better to just throw the item away. The robe is bound to the user and cannot be used by others. Once a week, the item must absorb one basic tier power stone. If no power stone is given, then one item will be taken from the storage at random. If there are no items, then the robe will destroy itself. Raze scratched his head furiously. Why? Out of all the possible effects, did the robe have to have this type of effect at his current stage? Why, out of all things, did it have to be a crystal? If I hadn't used dark magic, then it wouldn't have had any of these effects. I guess it's not too bad. I could just take all the items out once a week and throw a stone in there or something. That should work, right? It depends on where I am and the situation I'm in. The good news was that, based on the information provided, the crystal in the robe would require feeding in a week from now. Now, 3 crystals remained that he could use, and he already had an idea of what he wanted to do. Searching around, he found an alchemical bottle with a cork on top. It was clear and see-through. Next, he went to the sink at the back of the shop, which was more of a plastic tube embedded in the wall connected to who knew what. The flow of water was blocked by a small plastic cap that needed to be removed to let the water flow. Raze recognized it from his time at the temple, where they used similar caps to clean dishes. After filling up one bottle with water, Raze did the same with another, leaving him with 2 filled bottles. Returning to the magic circle drawn on the ground with the available chalk in the shop, he adjusted the formation, placed one of the bottles in the center, and activated the circle with magic again. The liquid inside illuminated before turning into a dark blue color, almost purple, indicating that the item had been successfully created. Cursed Basic Mana Potion will restore the person's mana to its maximum capacity for 1 minute. Reading this, Raze didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A normal mana potion would have restored a portion of one's mana permanently. In this case, the mana restored was the entirety of the user's mana, but it would last for only 1 minute, rendering the effect short-lived. The reason Raze wanted a more basic mana potion was so he could hunt for longer periods in a shorter time frame. For a mage, mana was their lifeline. There were superior potions at higher tiers that could provide unlimited mana use for a certain duration, but it would be a while until he acquired one of those. He repeated the process with a second bottle and received the same effect, but it made him wonder as he looked at it. What would happen if a Pagna warrior took one of these? Would it restore their chi? Raze pondered. Their cultivation techniques based on chi were able to increase the strength of my magic core, so maybe if they took this, it would have a similar effect. In the first place, chi and mana seem to be the same type of energy. The difference lies in how a person uses it. The issue was, having used 1 power stone to create such a potion, Raze didn't want to give it away for free, especially considering its effects. Finally, Raze held the last basic power stone in his hand. "I'll be keeping you," Raze said with a smile. "It looks like I'm going to need more stones to reach the next star level, and they're quite useful in this world as well. So I guess I'll be going back to that place again," Raze thought. A few days had passed since Raze had visited the town with Sappha. Each night, Raze continued to join in the training, which seemed to still focus on perfecting the two-step shift as a group. Raze participated, doing his best to increase his stamina. While there were some improvements, they were negligible, almost as if he were unwell. Nevertheless, he continued to cultivate each night, and his dark attribute continued to grow stronger. Dark attribute, 21. He could feel that the dark attribute was nearing its peak. If he didn't manage to become a 2-star mage soon, he would hit the cap. The good news was that during this time, there were no visitors. No visitors from the Red Brigade clan, no visitors from Grin or anyone else. Being secluded in the mountains, they were away from gossip and rumors, so he had no idea what had happened with that incident. For now, he would focus on himself. There was one surprising thing, though. After a couple of days, Sappha had returned to the temple, and she was completely fine. There were no bandages on her arm, and she had no broken bones. There was now a small scar on her bottom lip, but it was quite remarkable. Raze wondered what the physician had done without any magic to expedite the healing process. He thought that maybe he should have stayed to observe. During the day, the group had finished their chores early, leaving them with free time to do as they wished. Most of them were playing games like tag or hopscotch on the ground. Some were simply taking naps. As for Simeon, he was walking around outside when he spotted Sappha sitting alone under a tree, seemingly reading a book. "I'm surprised that someone her age can read," Simeon thought. "I thought she and Raze were from a family with no name. They wouldn't have been able to afford school. Most do learn the basics at the Pagna Academy due to needing them to read skill books and cultivation manuals. I guess with the way she is, it would make sense if she found some way to read, since she can't talk." While Simeon approached her, he felt a bit sorry for her. Due to her condition, none of the other kids wanted to play with her. The others were much younger, making it challenging to communicate with someone who couldn't speak. Grin, the twins, and himself were the only ones around her age. "Hey, do you mind if I sit with you?" Simeon asked, tilting his head to catch the name of the book she was reading. How to Control Your Emotions. Sappha shook her head to indicate that she didn't mind, and Simeon took a seat beside her, making sure not to encroach on her personal space. "You know, I think that book might be better for your brother to read," Simeon suggested. Sappha responded with a small giggle or two. While she could make simple noises like giggling, an outright laugh was nearly impossible and would sound like huge breaths of air. "You know, sometimes I wish your brother were as approachable as you," Simeon said as he started playing with the mud on the ground. Sappha looked at him and raised her shoulders while making hand gestures, but Simeon couldn't understand their meaning. "Are you trying to ask why?" Simeon guessed, to which she quickly nodded. Before saying anything further, Simeon turned his head to look for Raze. Children were playing outside, but Raze was nowhere in sight. "The truth is, Sappha, I think your brother's really strong. And if he is, I wanted to ask him how he got strong. We can see from the training that he's not as talented as you. So what's his secret?" Simeon said to himself. He hadn't approached Raze yet and had only observed him during the past few days of training, but nothing stood out. "You know, I'm sure your brother would never tell you this, so keep it a secret. But he was actually the one who gave Grin a beating," Simeon confided. "I saw it with my own 2 eyes. That's why that bully hasn't come back, and that's how I know your brother is strong as well." Sappha's eyes widened as she heard this, and her heart started to beat slightly faster, with her face turning slightly red. She had always worried whether Raze cared for her and if he would be angry at her for losing those crystals. She had tried her hardest, and she wondered if he had seen that. To hear this, it seemed like she was right about her brother being a kind person. "So, how do you think I should approach him?" Simeon asked. "I was thinking of trying to force him to teach me. You know, if he doesn't teach me, then I'll tell Mr. Crone what he did to Grin." Immediately, Sappha started to shake her head violently. She could already imagine how that scene would play out, Based on the few instances, she had seen a different side of Raze. Haha, you don't think that's a good idea either, huh? I had a feeling that might not work, Semyon said, trying to find a way to communicate. Safa eventually picked up the book she was reading and started to point at certain words. Her index finger lingered on the word until Semyon said it out loud. You, Semyon called out. She stopped for a moment and looked at him. I can read. Don't worry. Keep going, Semyon said with a smile. Eventually, after going through each word this way, Semyon had gathered what Safa was trying to say. So you think I shouldn't use this in a threatening way, but if I can spin it so it sounds like he owes me a favor for keeping this secret, then he might teach me, because he owes me one. I see, I think that could work. I just need to find the right time, Semyon said. Later that night, Raze exited his room and turned to look at Safa, who was gazing at him. No words were spoken, as she simply turned away as if she were trying to get some sleep, while Raze closed the door behind him. It seems like she's learning fairly quickly, Raze smiled to himself. Back in the same spot as before in the forest, Raze drew a magic circle on the ground. He then touched the cloth-like clothing that had been given to him by the temple. It started to change slightly, almost growing out of the shirt he was wearing, and now a full black robe was on him. The long black robe covered most of his legs, almost touching the floor, and when he pulled up the hood, his face was harder to see than usual, being slightly distorted around his eyes. Only his nose and mouth could be seen clearly. It was one of the robe's effects. Lifting one side of the robe open, Raze reached in and pulled out the power stone, holding it in his hand. It's been exactly a week since I last went to this place. That's what that person said, to come back in a week. Opening a portal to another dimension would be risky, as there was a high chance it could lead to a place filled with even more dangerous beasts. The beasts from the portal he had opened before were suited to his level, but there was a chance he could run into Beatrix or someone like Beatrix again. However, for some reason, the strange man had helped him last time. Just in case something like that happened again, he thought it would be safer as long as the man was present. Although meeting them was more of a side goal, Raze just aimed to get more crystals. Let's hope things go better this time, Raze said as he stepped into the portal. At the same time, in another part of the continent, Dame and his small squad were staring at a portal in front of them. I hope we get to meet him again, the Dark Magus, Dame smiled. In the small town that Raze had visited, something had occurred after he left. There were visitors who would come up to the door, see the closed sign, and leave without suspecting anything, with no trouble at all. After all, nearly every shop was independently owned. It wasn't as if there was a big corporation behind the scenes. Although at times, shops did have multiple loans to pay, or in certain cities, they would have to pay a tax fee to those in charge, or even for protection against the clan. Regardless, that was the reason no one had suspected a thing when a shop was closed. People took days off or had events that required them to be away. However, there was a pair of people that approached the door, and regardless of the closed sign, they gave it a knock anyway. A fairly tall man, wearing a large brown overcoat and a white shirt underneath, approached the door. He used his fingers to twirl his light brown mustache before knocking with his other hand 3 times. It says it's closed, Himmy, Charlotte said, pointing to the sign hanging on the door. Charlotte was a woman about half the size of the man next to her. Unlike Himmy, she was dressed much more like the locals, with a simple one-piece set of cloth clothing wrapped around her waist with a fabric band to hold it together. The only thing that stood out was her barrier-type hat, which only revealed a sliver of orange-colored hair that reached her shoulders, while her friend's hair was tucked away under his hat. Do you think I can't read anymore? Himmy replied. We have an appointment, and not once has Han missed it. Himmy proceeded to knock louder this time, shaking the wooden door, which creaked as if it might break. You're going to feel really bad if Han was just taking a sh*T, and now you've made him rush to the door, Charlotte commented, her expression unchanged. The two stood there in silence, with neither of them saying a word for a while, until Himmy had enough. Can you just pick-lock the door already, so we can see what's up? It's clear that he isn't in the toilet, Himmy complained. Charlotte did as he asked, reaching into the side of her clothing and pulling out a couple of small tools. It looked like a metal contraption with many different long metal pieces hanging from it. Himmy then stood in front of her, using his body to block the view of any onlookers. In particular, he kept an eye on those in red armor, tracking their movements carefully until a click sound was heard from behind. "Oh man," Charlotte said. "It literally smells like sh*T in here." She was wafting her hand and wanted to turn back, but before she could, Himi pushed her with his body and closed the door behind him. "Hey, don't trap me in here. Are you trying to kill me with this smell?" Charlotte started pounding her fists on his large stomach, but they just bounced off, seemingly doing nothing, not even causing him to flinch. "It looks like we know what happened to Han now," Himi said. "And what that smell is." So disgusted by the smell, Charlotte was closing her eyes to stop them from watering, and she had failed to look at the scene properly while trying to get out. Now she could see it for herself. 2 dead bodies on the floor that were rotting away to the point where a few bugs were starting to eat them. The buildings and houses weren't the best built, allowing them to get through the cracks here and there. "How long do you think they've been dead for?" Charlotte asked, still covering her nose and mouth with her sleeve. "It's hard to tell," Himi replied as he moved closer to the bodies to have a look. "Han didn't really have any friends or family, so no one came to check up on him. I thought you said you were a police officer. Can't you just take one look at the scene and figure it out?" Charlotte imitated an explosion with her arms, then quickly covered her nose again. "Based on the body's decomposition, I would say this had to have happened yesterday. Their muscles are still hardened from rigor mortis. What's confusing me is the scene itself. If you look at the wounds and the shop, things don't match up. The 2 of them are covered in wounds, as if they were both fighting for their lives, and yet the items on the shelves, the countless ornaments all over the place, have no signs that they've fallen off or anything of sort. To me, it looks more like a stage scene. So you think someone came in here and put them like that? So then why did they kill them?" Charlotte asked. Himi had a smile on his face as he moved behind the counter, looking for other clues. "You're asking the right questions, but there are more questions to be asked than that. What was their goal? No money was taken from the shop, and it doesn't look like anything was stolen from the shop either. I don't know, I mean, Han was a D*CK, Charlotte commented. He had a lot of enemies, so there would be a lot of people who wanted to kill him." "That's very true, but remember where we are," Himi replied, pointing to the large man on the floor. "That man is around 120 kilograms. It would take a lot for any normal person to topple him down. And remember what I said before about there being no struggle. Someone was able to kill both of them with no struggle. The only people we know capable of that are Pagno warriors. But if we ignore all of the sword wounds on their bodies, there's no sign of martial art techniques being used on them, apart from a clean hole that goes through the heart and one that goes through the head." At a glance, Charlotte didn't notice it, but now that Himi had pointed it out and she went in for a closer look, she could see it. But she quickly pulled away before throwing up all over the place. "Are you trying to imply what I think you're implying?" Charlotte asked. "Yes, I am," Himi replied with a large smile on his face. "I think we might have another otherworlder who has arrived, and I'm a detective, not a police officer." Dark Pulse. A dark beam of magic shot out of Ray's hand and went right through the dog's head, killing it in one go. As soon as the dog creature fell to the floor, Raze immediately went and started pulling it apart in search of the crystal. Dark Attribute, 23. This was Ray's 5th kill since he had entered the portal, which meant he was now in the position of 5 power stones. Unlike before, he was no longer gaining 1 point of the Dark Attribute for 1 kill. It had taken 2 or 3. The more points one had, the harder it would be to gain more. The good news was that Raze was now able to kill the beast with a single use of Dark Pulse, and there was no need for him to add the 2-step shift to his attacks. With the ring, he was gaining mana back for each kill. All right, things are looking good. Raze wiped the sweat off the top of his forehead. There was still some physical work involved in getting the crystal out of the body. Looking around, he was currently on the large raised platform that led to the crumbling building. The portal, having activated it in the same place, had taken him to the same place as before, and he had 2 options. Enter the forest where there were most likely packs of these dog creatures, or head up the stairs to the platform with the large wall, where he could see beasts coming at him more easily. The sound of growling was heard from behind, and as Raze turned, he could see a dog creature leap from one of the wooden crates. Its powerful legs crushed the crate beneath it, but Raze wasn't worried. When it was in the air, It was an easier target for Raze. Pointing his hand out, he said the words, "Dark Pulse," and the beam went right through the dog. Stepping to the side, its body splattered limp on the ground. This is turning out a lot better than before. There's no mysterious, powerful woman attacking me. No large beast just popping out of nowhere. So I can finally grind in peace and get as many crystals as possible. I need to get enough crystals from this trip to become a 2-star mage. The mana gained from killing a beast was just slightly under what he needed to use Dark Pulse, so Raze would have to take frequent breaks once in a while. Not because he ran out of mana, but because he wanted enough mana to fight if the situation occurred that he would need it for a desperate fight again. I wish this body was actually capable of performing martial arts to a certain degree. If I manage to become a first-rank Pagna warrior, I should be able to take these dogs out with just my fists, right? Then I wouldn't have to use my mana up and join the Pagna Academy, where they have more portals. I still have time, though. It will be okay. Continuing his spurts of hunting, Raze had managed to kill 12 beasts, all of the same kind in total, and his dark attribute had risen to 25. When this happened, the ring started to glow, and a dark mist started to pour out of it as a message was displayed to him. You have reached the maximum limit for darkness attribute your current magic core can handle. Now, no matter how many creatures I kill or how much I cultivate, it won't grow, not unless I'm able to upgrade my mana core. It was starting to get a little harder to hunt on the platform outside. There appeared to be no beasts left, so he had decided to head into the building he had met the others in before. It wasn't that Raze was afraid that he would run into them. It was more so he wanted to finish the important things first, gathering the crystals he needed. Inside the building, Raze's steps echoed as he made each step, the noise bouncing off the large hallway. If he remembered correctly, he had been blasted up to the 3rd floor in the building. Finding a crumbly staircase, he started to proceed, with his hand held out in front of him. He needed to have a bit of caution. The only advantage he had over these martial arts experts was distance. Reaching the 2nd floor, there was no sign of anybody, and that included dead creatures. As he continued walking through the halls of this floor to head to the next staircase, he soon spotted something on the ground. A dead beast, the same type that I've been killing as well, but its neck has been broken. Looks like there's a Pagna warrior here after all. Whether it was the same people as last time or not, time would tell. Hey, state where you're from, and don't come any closer, a loud voice shouted. It was hard to tell from how far or close the words were due to the echo, but Raze slowly turned around and had his hand placed out in front of him. As long as he didn't conjure his magic, it wouldn't look threatening. Wait, don't I recognize that guy? Raze thought, tilting his head to the side like a dog to get a better look. The man on the other side was at least 10 meters away. Stop being so on edge, Kirk, Dame said as he walked past with his friends behind him. Raze did recognize them. These were the same group of people as before. It looks like you decided to come after all. I thought I might not see you here. I'm right, aren't I, Dark Magus? With the new effect of his robe that he was wearing and his hood up, one shouldn't have been able to recognize his facial features. That was why none of them thought this person in front of them was the same as the one they had met last time, except for Dame. It looks like after what happened last time, you decided to get a new get-up. That's understandable. Dame looked Raze up and down and nodded in appreciation before stretching out his hand and giving a thumbs up. I like it a lot. Dame turned around to look at Fixteen, who was by his side, and shifted his fingers to tell him to hurry along. Fixteen went and stood in front of Dame and had something held in his hand, covered in cloth. Do you remember what I said last time? I wanted to repay you for helping out our team back then, so I brought you a gift. Fixteen walked ahead, and then, around halfway between the two, placed it on the ground. Although the group had been next to each other before, both parties were still wary of each other. The tension could be felt by both, so it seemed better to do things in this manner. Raze walked forward, his fingers twitching, ready to strike at any moment, and knelt down, pushing the cloth off from the object, and noticed the worn leather. A book. Ah, I suppose it might seem like a strange reward, but trust me, it's more valuable than you think, Dame explained. That's not just any book, but it's a cultivation book, a book that will be able to open your eyes to the power that we use, the power of martial arts. The term cultivation book made a lot more sense to Raze than Dame, probably realized. If someone used that word in his world, they would probably think it meant a book about cultivating crops and becoming some type of farmer. However, in the world of Pagna, it meant cultivating one's own inner powers, growing the energy known as chi from within. Picking it up from the ground, Raze started to flip through the book. There were ink drawings of sitting positions and energy circulating around the stomach. There was also a detailed explanation of what one was meant to do. You might not understand it fully, Dame started to explain. We fight with our fists, and those books help us gather the power that's needed for it. That's the basis of all our powers. I thought it would be interesting for you to research. You might not understand what's written in it, but if you want, we can meet up week to week, and I can show you how everything is used in it. The writing wasn't the same as they used on Altarian, but Raze could understand it all due to the current body he was in. As he was looking at the notes, he noticed that it was slightly different from the technique that Crone had tried to teach him in Sappha, but there were also some similarities as well. Wait, Crone did mention that if I were to learn another cultivation technique that could draw in chi energy other than that of the Dark Faction, that maybe it would work for my body. If I learn this book, will I be able to gather chi in my dantian and actually learn to utilize martial arts properly? As long as you haven't learned anything like this before, everything should work out, and you could be someone that can have the same power in your fist. Dame gathered energy and punched the air, creating a loud bang that vibrated the ground and ceiling around them. Why is he explaining everything to me like I'm some type of baby? Raze thought until it clicked in his head. Wait, does he know that I'm not from the world of Pagna? Well, he must think I'm not from the world of Pagna when I really am. Was it when I used magic to clean that wound? Now I'm starting to understand why he's being so friendly to me. He's interested. To him, this is almost like a cultural exchange where two people from different worlds share their knowledge. But if you think you're going to learn magic from me, my trump card, then think again, although I will happily accept this. Raze opened up his robe, holding it to the side, and placed the book inside, sinking it into his robe. All those standing opposite watched, blinking multiple times, and started to rub their eyes. Hey, did you see what I just saw? Carlson asked. Yeah, that book, it just vanished into his clothing. Wait, is he really not from our world then? Fixteen shouted. Seeing this, Dame was almost unable to contain his excitement as he lifted and started laughing out loud to himself. That was when Raze decided to do something interesting. He reached into his robe, and this time, rather than putting something in, he pulled something out instead. It was a bottle filled with dark blue-colored liquid, one of the 2 mana potions that he owned. With a swing of his hand, Raze chucked it to the others. Frightened at what the object could do, the others flinched and pulled away, while Dame caught it with a single hand in midair. He held it up, looked at it, and shook the bottle. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. That is a special item from my world, Raze explained. If you drink it for 1 whole minute, all of the energy in your body will be restored, allowing you to fight at full strength. Immediately, Dame's eyes started to light up, and he felt like he was holding onto a pot of gold. Are you serious? This can really do something like that? Dame asked. There were certain pills that could do something similar for Pagna warriors, but they were almost impossible for those at the initial stage to obtain. For someone to just give something like this, they had no idea how much value it was worth in their world. I'll be honest, I'm not sure it will work on you, but give it a try. And if it's useful, then the next time we meet, you can give me a reward of equal value, Raze proposed. After his incident with attempting to sell the crystal, Raze knew that trying to sell the potion would result in the same thing. In fact, it would be worse because it was something that was unrecognized in the world of Pagna. So, as a stranger, his word had no value. At the same time, he truthfully didn't know if the potion would work, so it was nice to have Dame as a test subject. This Dame guy was someone who was strong enough to go against Beatrix, who made everyone stop on the spot in the street. So it's clear that he isn't just a nobody. If I can keep this relationship up between us two, it could be very beneficial for me. I guess we should make this meeting a weekly thing then. Dame smiled as he handed the potion over to Fixteen. Learn that book well for our next meeting, and if you show me some progress, I will be happy to show you a few things, so if you run into people like that woman again, you'll be able to protect yourself. The two of them gave each other a nod before turning around with the new items in their hands, both of them believing they had the upper hand in the deal they had just made. Raze held the book firmly and looked at the cover. Did he rip the name off the book on purpose before handing it to me? Let's head back and learn this. Before completely leaving the portal area, Raze did one more clearance of beasts on his route back and managed to catch another 2 beasts. These worlds to other dimensions were quite strange. As long as one waited a certain amount of time, it was almost as if new creatures would pop up again in the same place, somewhat similar to those games, but he didn't have all day to grind in one area. There would be people who would start to worry about him, and he didn't have the right tools to camp all night in another dimension in the first place. In total, this meant he now had 14 crystals and headed back to his own world with a smile on his face. The portal had zapped away, leaving next to nothing behind, and a few moments later, Dame walked down the stairs and was heading down the pathway that led to the forest along with the others. What was that thing he was doing with his finger? Fixteen asked. Yeah, is that what opened the portal? How is that even possible? Carlson said, who had run over to where they had last seen the Dark Magus. He looked on the floor, stretched his hand out in front of him, but was unable to feel anything. It's clear that wherever he is from, they can enter and leave these dimensions as they wish, Dame said. The more I learn about this man, the more excited I'm starting to feel. Hey, if we get really close to him, do you think we could enter the portal with him? Kirk asked. He's from another world, right? So on the other side of the portal, that's a world with people that are like him, right? Don't you think that would be amazing to see? Or incredibly dangerous, Dame replied instantly. He had thought about the same thing the moment he believed the Dark Magus was from another world. Even in the world of Pagna, clans, factions, and people fought against each other. If 2 groups of people who knew nothing about each other were to meet, he could imagine a grand war playing out. It was just what happened when one was fearful of the other. Don't try anything stupid like following him. It will break our relationship. And this is a warning to you all. Dame and his group had returned to the Abyssal Pinnacle, the inverted mountain, and the base of the Neverfall clan. Descending down the stairs, Dame had passed the first floors and then had entered one of the caves of meditation. There were countless numbers of large holes in the walls for the members to perform secluded training if need be. When one entered the cave, they were meant to move a large rock to block the entrance. This would allow one to know that one of these rooms was being used. Closest to the staircase, there was one cave's entrance that had been closed, but regardless, Dame moved the large rock out of the way with his strength and entered with his group before closing it again. This was because this was Dame's personal room. At least that's what he had claimed it as. Regardless if someone was inside or not, he would close the entrance so no one entered, and word quickly got around that it was his cave and no one else was to use it. Inside the cave, it was not what a typical cave of seclusion should have looked like. There were several beds, a desk in the back with books stacked high, and even a few sparkly items, gems, and so on. The cave had been turned into a second home of all things. Dame walked over and sat on the bed, looking at the bottle of blue liquid he had been given. What are you going to do with it? Fixteen asked. Are you going to try it out for yourself? I just think that would be a waste, Dame replied. If it really does what he said it does, then can't we gain some benefit from this? We could even sell it for a lot of coin. The other members were already rubbing their hands as they started to imagine what they could buy. So you want to give it to the master? Fixteen raised an eyebrow. No, Dame answered. If we did that, then he would be asking all sorts of questions about the Dark Magus, and then we would no longer be able to benefit from all of this. Heck, we might not even be allowed to use the portals anymore. You mean the portals we weren't allowed to use in the first place? Fixteen corrected him. Hey, I heard that the Crimson Crane were in Repton. It's the closest city to us. Didn't you say you were close with their leader, Alba? Couldn't you go see them? Dame stood up and clicked his fingers. That's perfect. The Crimson Crane were a unique clan, if one could even call them that. They were small in size, having only a total of 8 members. Yet they had power just as strong as the other clans, which proved just how strong they were on an individual scale. Another thing that stood out about the Crimson Crane compared to other groups was that they were wanderers. Wanderers were those that cultivated in martial arts that didn't belong to any of the three factions, so they weren't seen as a part of the three. They were safely able to travel to all three areas, being respected by them all. It also was hard for people to get a hold of them if need be, since they would constantly move from area to area doing mercenary jobs. All right, let's head out there fast and see just what we can get for this thing. Dame held up the bottle. Let's see if we could get a big reward for the Dark Magus. As this was happening, Raze had exited from the portal, and instead of heading back to the temple where the eyes of the others were on him, he had decided to head to a more peaceful area. He had reached a bed of rocks that led to a stream of running water. It felt like the perfect place for him to focus and calm his mind. All right, let's break through and become a 2-star mage. It didn't take long for Dame and his group to reach the city of Repton. Unlike many other places, there was quite a vibrant nightlife here. The night sky was out, but the street was littered with glowing yellow lights and red lanterns. The buildings were grand, made of new materials, and next to none of them seemed like they needed any repair work done to them. At the same time, there were elegant places spread throughout large sections of the city, as well as giant pagodas placed in all sorts of different areas. Even the streets were filled with the lively, the cheerful, and the drunk. Inside one of the buildings, there was a 3-story restaurant. It was filled with customers even at this time of night, most of them drunk after drinking all night. However, there were several of those that had been hired from a nearby clan to do cleanup work if there were any rowdy customers. On the second floor, a meeting was taking place. A large, low, rectangular table was placed between the two, with cushions on the ground. On one side sat Dame, although he didn't look like his usual self, as he was wearing a bright, multicolored fox mask on his face. It was made of plastic, something that anyone was able to pick up and buy. He was on his own, while his men remained on the bottom floor. On the other side was a woman with darkened skin and a hint of red pigmentation. It was unusual for a person to have, but it was eye-catching as well. The strange dark red glow would make people's heads turn. That was until they noticed who it was, making them turn away immediately. This wasn't because she wasn't a pleasant sight to look at. It was quite the opposite. Her tight-fitting leather clothing seemed to accentuate the curves of her body, and similar to her red-pigmented skin, there was a slight pigment of red in her eyes around the edge, making them look as if they were almost glowing. This was Alba, the leader of the Crimson Cranes. I can only think of one reason why you would come out of your way to look for me. Alba smiled, placing both hands on the table. You decided to finally accept my offer of joining us. Immediately, Dame started to shake his head. You know I could never do that. Look, I even have to wear this mask when I enter this city. There's no chance I would be able to be with you as much as I want to. Alba folded her arms and gave out a big snort, turning her head to the side. She wasn't interested in anything else he had to say after that answer. I promise, though, this is not a waste of your time. Out from his robe, Dame pulled out the bottle and placed it on the table, then slid it across until it had finally reached her. What you have right there is a liquid that will allow you to regain all of your chi, no matter what condition you are in, for an entire minute, Dame said confidently, even though he knew full well there was a chance that it wouldn't work. I didn't realize that you had now become a con artist. Or maybe you were the one that's being conned and trying to use me. I would never. Dame quickly shouted back, as if he was offended, even though she had hit the nail on the head. Do you even realize how great of a thing this is if what you said is true? I'm a warrior at the middle stage. Maybe something like this can work on those at the initial stage, but it won't work on me. And what if it does? Dame excitedly said. You said I don't know its value, but I do, which is why I handed it to you. There are many fights that take place where one is extremely exhausted. Just one slip, and the other will lose in battle. But if they were to take this, then they would have all of their chi back again. This will be something that every person in Pagna will be fighting for, and you will be the first person to have one. Alba picked it up and shook it, looking at it for a little while. She believed that Dame had no reason to poison her. But why was he so confident? Who gave you this? Or who made it? She asked. I can't give you the full details, but it's a man that goes by the name Dark Magus. Alba nearly burst out laughing. What type of warrior gave themselves a name like that? Perhaps Dark was a hint, stating that they were from the Dark faction. All right, let's go see if this thing works. If it does, you can always get more, right? Alba smiled. The two of them had left the main city and started to travel through the large landmass. They had eventually reached a mountainous area and stood at the foot of the mountain. Alba started to gather up all her strength. The chi was visible on her body. It was lighting all over like a flame trying to burn out. It grew larger and larger in size and was burning fiercely above her head. It never stops to amaze me, just how much chi you have, Dame said. Eventually, the flames started to die down. She didn't want to completely exhaust herself because she had extreme doubts about this thing. All right, so all I have to do is drink it? She asked. Yeah, of course, Dame answered. She opened the bottle and started to chug it down. I think anyway, he didn't really explain everything. I mean, it's liquid, right? What else are you meant to do? Rub it on your body. Alba had already drunk all the contents of the bottle, but she was so annoyed at Dame that she crushed it with her hand. You idiot! She shouted and turned to look at him. After taking one step, though, she stopped and started to look at both of her hands. What is this? I can feel it, I really can. My dantian, it's filled with chi again. Just as much as I had before we got here. Just in case, Alba started to burn the chi like she had done previously and was able to produce this same level of chi from her body. If our clan had these, we would be able to complete the portal we've been struggling with for so long. Running over, Alba placed her hands on Dame's shoulders with a giant smile on her face. I see you like the product, huh? I guess you would like me to get more for you. Dame asked. No, Alba replied. This Dark Magus person, I want to meet him. I have to have him in our clan.